We've been doing a lot of talking about our storyline and our faulty constructs needing to crumble and completely dismantle. And I'd like to go into that a little bit. I think it's something that I spend time writing about right now. It's things that if we say it 100 times as we're doing these conversations, the only reason that we were able to get to where we are now individually and collectively is because we let go of our storyline. And when we let go of our storyline, then the faulty belief systems, the faulty constructs, the faulty constructs fell and the faulty belief systems were revealed. And at that point is where transformation started happening. And if I have questions for anyone who's in marriage, I don't care if you think your marriage is healthy or not. My first question right now would be, what's your storyline? And what are you sacrificing for that storyline? And why? I think there is a nobility now to working towards your storyline and allowing your storyline to make your decisions for you. And I know I'm on a soapbox right now, but it is not worth it to sacrifice personal health and even a healthy marriage for a storyline. Even if your storyline is the appearance of a healthy marriage, if we are valuing the marriage over the individual, if we are valuing the relationship over health, if we are valuing the storyline over everything, then we're married to the storyline. We're not married to each other. We're not married. And there will be a slow death of something, even if it's never acknowledged. But is it worth it to sacrifice health? Is it worth it to sacrifice living for a storyline that we never challenge? Is it worth it? I think for us, letting go of that storyline was the hardest, but the only way towards health.
We're talking about this because the cost was high.
Yeah, we've said
the cost of letting go was high. I mean, you want to talk about the fear of coming against your religion, the fear of coming against your ethos, the way you were raised, the way that you see people try to operate, the fear of going against all of that and saying, hey, we are going to make, I am going to make, and therefore we, because I said I, you said I, and we said we, are going to make a decision that comes against everything that we know. And the cost is high.
We had to be willing to say, my internal health is more important. Like, I'm committed to me and I'm committed to health more than I am committed to a faulty storyline, because the storyline that we had was not facilitating health.
That sentence is it.
It wasn't.
Committed more to us individually than the story, than the front, than the sitcom, than the movie, than the ideal, than the image, than what's in that.
Even then, like, now that we're on this side, I can see how much of even our attempts at health in the marriage and forward motion in the marriage was for that storyline. It wasn't actually for health. It was to make that storyline live at the sacrifice of everything else. And seeing that storyline was just that. It was a story. It was not real. It was something that we had constructed internally and then together.
It was a story that wasn't written by us.
Well, we entered into it. We started writing pages and turning the chapter, but it wasn't for us. When we would connect on things, we would recognize how in so many ways we were, we called it non-traditional because of the tradition that we had grown up with. That we had belief systems and ideations and desires that were outside of that storyline. And we would say, how? What? But we didn't recognize that the very thing that was keeping us from those things was our storyline.
Choosing to follow the storyline created internal frustration that we started then additionally taking out on each other. If we were both trying to follow this paradigm and trying to follow, well, this is what's supposed to be right. It doesn't feel right, but this is supposed to feel right.
Right. And this till death do us part at the sake of anything. That was the most detrimental piece of the storyline, because that meant that we sacrificed part of our essence and thought that we were supposed to be doing that for the health of the marriage. And I don't know how to communicate strongly enough that that is a fucking lie. It is a lie. Letting that phrase, till death do us part, control decisions, control health, where I am right now in my journey, in my wrestling, in my not knowing, but where I am right now, is the biggest detriment of the storyline, is because it makes people, individuals, marriage, I don't care if it's 2 men or 2 women, I don't care.
Any range of the
spectrum. If we are more committed to commitment than we are to each other and to ourselves, someone's gonna let go of themselves. And I think there is a belief that letting go of yourself, sacrificing who you are for the betterment of the whole, that is, I think maybe we don't even talk about it, but that's kind of like the unspoken expectation. Is you will sacrifice who you are for the sake of the 2. And I completely disagree with it. 100%.
I agree. And it's not only that part of the vow. I question why for richer or for poorer was put in there in the first place, because it's absolutely about money too. If you put for richer or for poorer in, that means one of the people in the marriage or relationship, whatever, doesn't have to worry about taking care of what they need to take care of. And the other person just has to deal because it's like, oh, for richer or for poor. And that was made part of the canon of a good relationship. And I would just totally take that out.
In sickness and in health as well. Like all of the, like we already talked about that being a patriarchal construct to keep people in line and bound and controlled. But those statements, wow.
It was a big cost to abandon that and start writing our own story, but it was worth it.
It was so worth it.
In fact, it continues to be worth it because we ain't got this figured out, but our path is one that is ours now.
It's ours.
It's our mistakes as opposed to mistakes of a system or a culture.
And the commitment, first and foremost, is to individual and personal growth, development, health. Recognizing that if that was not prioritized first and foremost the whole entire time, that is one of the reasons, that was one of the storylines that we had abandoned, was that the individual, the essentialism of the individual, And I don't think that marriages are willing to risk their storyline, risk the end of their story. They're not willing to. And so then it's a slow death. It is a slow, systematic death that you turn your life over to. You turn yourself over to it. And you say, for the sake of this marriage, it's worth it. Is it?
It was an absolute necessity that you and I looked at each other in the eyes and say, I'm willing to end this relationship if it is not health, if we are not pursuing individual health.
And then we did end it because we realized that the constructs of our marriage needed to be completely ended, completely dismantled, end, or we were not going to individually blossom as people. And honestly,
That's right.
I think more than me, you have blossomed as an individual since that time.
There's been a lot of growth. And it's been responsibility, too. There's been an incredible increase of responsibility. Once the responsibility went on me instead of a system, instead of saying, oh, well, this is what someone in my position should be, or this is what someone in my position should do. Instead, everything comes down to me. Everything comes down to what I'm going to do about it, about me.
Right. I rise to the occasion of expectations, and you have anxiety.
Historically have not. Yep, and
you
anxiety.
have anxiety about them. But I don't think that we're alone, or that our stories. I think there's a million different ways dynamics play out, where there's different responses to expectations. But it's not right if we're living to a story. Period. And we're not living to a story anymore. We're just living.
Not. This is just us. There's no story.
There's no more story.